carbon neutral by 2030, if my memory serves me right. And that's more ambitious than I think, from memory, the government's targets are, which I think is 2050 from memory. And so, yes, that will be a challenge. And a lot of it is financial. Again, without wanting to sound like a broken record, we've had 10 years of austerity. We've had our budgets cut significantly, and that really does impact on the ability of the organisation. We've lost a lot of good staff over the years, and with that loss, the sort of institutional knowledge goes with it as well, and that's to the detriment of the local authority and the local communities. So there's no doubt that the financial aspect is going to be a key challenge for us. We know that we've got big challenges in terms of an aging population, which does impact on our ability to spend. Grants are going down year on year, so we're having to find and fund ourselves. And interestingly, the assumption often is that every local authority receives similar sort of funding, and actually the formula that exists doesn't do that. And as a local authority, Hounslow has always had a very low base in terms of grants, so we've always been reliant on the income we can generate ourselves, and that impacts. But to park that to one side, we still need to be innovative, and that's where the green agenda kind of comes from. So what we're really looking for, and sorry, the other thing, just before I sort of put my ask out there, is around that sense of community, that place. So what we realized during the pandemic, and we kind of knew it, but it was very laid bare before us during the pandemic, is actually our residents value the place. We've got 4 big town centres, but then we've also got neighbourhoods and villages, and people feel very wedded to their local community, and that sense of place is really important, and it's trying to bring that out. So when we're looking at the green agenda, as it were, we're looking for partners that are really looking to come with us on that journey. And that's really, really important for us. So it's not just about infrastructure, it's about the place that communities find, that communities relate to, and that's really, really important. And with that, there are massive opportunities for our partners as well, to do something really worthwhile.
So is what you're saying that target, that 2030 target, is achievable even with no change to the sort of current funding regime and austerity and so on? You think with your innovations you can reach out to partners, to the private sector, to support you in delivering that ambition?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's about looking at how you do things differently. Again, the pandemic kind of tore up the rule book, the traditional rule book. So we feel that 2030 is very, very achievable, because there's a willingness to work with not only the private sector, but other public organizations as well. If you imagine, as a local authority, in one respect, without sounding too pompous, we hold the mandate. As elected members, we're the ones that are elected, and actually we have a unique position to be able to coordinate with the private sector, with other public organizations, to really say, look, how can we be greener? How can we be more sustainable in what you do? How can we think about the green agenda as a whole system across Hounslow? And then we've got to remember that there are sub-regional groups as well, across West London as well, who are all looking at similar sort of things. So how can we work together to try and harness those partnerships, both public and private? And the other thing I would say is, one thing that we've been very successful in as a council is really articulating what we want and going out there and getting external funding opportunities as well, be it from the private sector or be it from government, for special projects as well. That I think works really well.
Great stuff, thanks. And just continuing on this sort of challenges, I'm going to put you a question from one of our viewers. This is from Peter Eversden, who's chairman of the London Forum of Amenity and Civic Societies. In your efforts to produce an inclusive borough, and also to give life chances to younger people, improve life chances for younger people. Social housing is going to be an important element, an important tool. Can you get the required number of social and London living wage homes built?
I think what I would say to Peter, and I'm grateful to him for the question, is that we know that there's national policy doesn't really sit on our side, and the funding isn't quite there to deliver truly affordable housing needs, to address the housing crisis that we face in Hounslow and across London in particular. So Peter will know, and you'll know, that we've pledged the ambitious target to secure 2,000 social rent homes for local needs. And the straight answer to the straight question is we are confident we'll be delivering those. But coming back to the earlier point that we kind of discussed, we want our social homes to be well designed and very low carbon. And so, therein lies the challenge, and it's securing the funding and working with partners to deliver on that ambition. So we're very confident. This is where our relationships across the sector are really, really important, and the good work that we did in the last administration comes into play to try and help that. We have to be confident. And actually the benefit there of delivering sort of low carbon houses is that it benefits those residents living in them as well, with lower utility bills as well. And we know that that's going to be a key thing as we try and tackle the cost of living crisis that we're currently going through.
Really relates to the second viewer question from David Hutt, director at Cllr, who's asking about modular housing and how that fits into your plans to create low carbon homes and particularly social and affordable homes. Does modular form a big part of your plans?
So that's it's an interesting one, and I'm aware that it's a debate that's happening again across London, in fact probably across the country. And I think what I would say to that is that given the scale and variety of housing needs that we have within the borough, it would be wrong to say that a certain type of housing is not capable of helping. However, what I would say is that our priority has to be that new homes are firstly affordable to the needs of local people, as well as being sustainable. And so whilst modular homes may have a role to play in this, its ability to realise those aims and ability to be delivered at scale as of yet have not been sufficiently demonstrated. So in many respects, the answer is maybe, but we need to see more about how they deliver elsewhere where they are used, and understand them a little bit better before we sort of put our eggs into one basket, because the needs are so diverse within the borough.
Fantastic, thank you. Fair enough. And I'd like to put another question sort of based on that kind of cleaner, greener agenda. It seems to me as a sort of outside observer that low traffic neighbourhoods, LTNs, formed quite a significant election issue across London and other parts. What's your take on them and the role that they play in providing a cleaner, greener borough versus the sort of resistance and opposition to them, and where that leads us in the conversation about the behavioural change that has to happen for all Hounslow residents, the scale of that change that has to happen in order for you to hit your targets as a low carbon borough?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So for me personally, I'm very much, I mean, I was on the cabinet when we discussed the introduction of low traffic neighbourhoods, and I'm very much in favour of them because actually in terms of that piece around relating it back to residents say they want cleaner air, and this is a key way to achieve cleaner air. And yes, there has been significant, not just in Hounslow, but elsewhere as well, resistance to that change. And to a certain degree, you kind of expect that resistance because it is a very big change. And we had to implement a lot of them at pace. So, in an ideal world, you probably want a longer lead in to it, and a little bit more in the way of conversations. And this is where that whole piece around the conversation that you have with local residents around some of these big changes comes into play, and really understanding what they like. But nonetheless, when we implemented them, they were always with regular review and tweaks, and I think that's really, really important. And we've got a couple that we're committed to looking at and understanding a little bit more in South Chiswick over the sort of course of this year. So there are some conversations there around changes that might be possible there, and then rolling out across the borough. I think we are still a very car reliant society in Hounslow, and I think some of that can be understood with, especially on the side that I sort of represent. I represent the sort of Feltham and Heston side of the borough, which is closest to the airport. Big pockets of deprivation there, people working shift work, so there is a reliance on cars. And that behavior will take a while to change. And part of that is having the public transport infrastructure available there, and offering real alternatives to car use. We haven't quite bottomed out that discussion yet, but it's a discussion that we want to have with the public at large, because I think it's important to take them on that journey with you.